I thought it would be pretty fun to talk about that original Dracula, 100 years later, not really 100 years later, 100 years later in the year of our Lord 2025. I'm talking about the OG Bela Lugosi film. I'm not talking about SpongeBob Nosferatu. I watched this movie with my grandpa a couple of weeks ago because he was like, turn on one of the newer horror pictures, turn on a Dracula. That one just came out, I think, right when I was a young man. So I said, Gramps, of course not. No, okay, yeah, sure, we'll watch it. I had seen the movie quite a while ago, but you know how sometimes there's like that refresher period? I feel like you have to renew your film opinion license on a movie every maybe 10, 15 years. You don't have to, of course, but it's nice. Sometimes it's a nice feeling. And there's a lot of things that stood out to me this time that I liked, that I appreciated a lot more, starting with this opening credits. Apparently there's two versions of the film, one with a score and one without. I watched the one without a score for a little more authentic experience, because back then I'm sure it was a lot more difficult to integrate the music with the actual dialogue, the diegetic and non-diegetic sounds. Some real film bro terms for you, bro. But even then, dude, it starts off with this piece of classical music, and instantly, dude, I clocked it. First of all, incredibly famous piece of music. I guarantee you that you've heard it. In fact, I can play it. It's this one. I'll make some Dracula faces or something while the music's playing. And I was like, hold a second. That's the opening song from Abigail that Abigail dances to. Kind of insane to call this piece of music the song from Abigail, but it also plays in Abigail, which, if you've seen Abigail, kind of a Dracula movie, instantly made me like Abigail a lot more. And there's another show it plays in that I'm like, I really wish I could say what show it is, but for secrecy reasons, I can't. If that's confusing, subscribe to my main channel, all will be revealed. But they also play in that show, and I'm like, wow, that is a really, I think, cool homage to this first film, a film that does a lot for the genre, that establishes a lot. That was my first takeaway. The second takeaway is not really a surprise because I remember this. Obviously, all kind of Dracula and surrogate Dracula stories, Nosferatu, have a pretty similar structure. Like if you compare this to Nosferatu from last year, structurally, especially the first half of the films, are very similar, which, again, I knew they were similar, right? I know Nosferatu pretty much is the same story, but just how similar the first half is, I was kind of just like a little jarred just because I forgot. I was kind of just like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. It makes me want to go back and watch Nosferatu, which I'm seeing some people are turning on now for some reason. Oh, Nosferatu, it's all just style, no substance. I still think it's good. Pretty horny, like a unicorn, but good. After that, obviously, Bela Lugosi is sensational. He's phenomenal. He's my favorite Dracula, I still would say, just because of the way he balances, like, I don't want to say creepiness. He's a little off-putting, but he's still classy. He's still very, fancy. I think that not only does he establish a good baseline of what Dracula performances should look like, he also, I think, sets that vibe really well of like elegant, a little seductive, but also creepy. Also like, okay, this guy's bad juju, I think, but I kind of want to see what's up. I kind of want to, catch a ride, scooter style with them. It also made me think of the Renfield movie with Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage when I was like watching when they do the flashbacks of that, and it's like, oh wow, it's like literally shot for shot what this film does. Again, I like that, dude, and I think that if you do a refresher of this film, you watch this film again, it will make you appreciate a lot of films that pay homage to it without even, knowing that. Obviously, you can watch Renfield and you can tell this is paying homage to that first film. You watch Nosferatu, you can tell it's paying homage to this first film, but still, it's a little different. I think it just gives a little more juice. You can admire just how well they're paying homage to that, and I really enjoy that. After that, another thing I really liked about this movie is freaking Van Helsing, dude. Van Helsing, such a G, dude. The guy walks in, he's the smartest, most badass guy in the room, and they never compromise that throughout the whole entire film. I love that. It makes this really good dynamic of like this really good force of good and this really good force of evil going at it. I really enjoy that, and if anything, I think that I'm going to say nowadays, I'm going to say just overall in general in the genre, the horror genre doesn't really do that. It's always like overwhelming force of bad and evil and then, you know, some guy tries. Don't even try, buddy. You're gonna get stomped into the ground. You're gonna get squished into the cracks of your mama's backs. Because even then, when you watch Nosferatu to compare these films a ton, Willem Dafoe's character kind of takes the form of like this Van Helsing character. He nowhere on the same power level as the Van Helsing in this film. The Van Helsing in this film, you're like, dude, I think this guy can not only take but outsmart Dracula, and he does exactly that for the whole entire film. He's just like dropping bars, just schooling Dracula. Speaking of hilarious, since there's no score, there are some moments that like I think inherently are really funny, really goofy. When Bela Lugosi Dracula, he's like, "Oh, Van Helsing, how can you kill me if I'm too busy attacking you?" And then Van Helsing's like, "Get a load of this." Ba-boom! He whips out a cross, and then Dracula's just like this. In real time, this is what it sounds like. Get a load of this. He doesn't even do that. That's hilarious. First of all, I feel like I need to watch the version of this film with the score so I can get a better idea. Maybe that's the better version of this film. Perhaps it is, but I just thought this was hilarious. I need to watch freaking the Gary Oldman Dracula again. I haven't seen that one in forever. Overall, I think this is a really important film to watch, both in quality and in historical value. And I think that if you are a film fan, if you're not a film fan, first of all, what are you doing here? Second of all, if you're a film fan, you should subscribe to this channel, first of all. Second of all, you should rewatch this film. I don't care if you watched it a week ago. Watch it again. Watch it 3 more times. No, okay, maybe not. You got a life. But it is a pretty short movie. Shorter than the new episodes of Stranger Things. Hello. Watch it again. I think you'll have a lot more appreciation for a lot of Dracula vampire stories. And that's good, because appreciating film, hello, heyo, that's good stuff. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Hit subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. See ya.